And welcome to Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. I'm Steve Swat with the Sacramento Report, and my guest this segment is Dan Logue, a member of the State Assembly from Chico. Thanks very much for being with us.
Happy to be here.
You're also Vice Chair of the Assembly Health Committee, and so I know you're taking, as all of us are, an active interest in the U.S. Supreme Court's upcoming decision on the Affordable Care Act. As we tape this interview, the court has not ruled yet.
Yes.
And so, what do you think? How do you think it's going to go?
I think that what's going to happen, Steve, is that the Supreme Court is going to strike down the mandate for funding, and they're going to come out and say, okay, we're going to strike down the mandate, but if the states want to do it, then the states can do it. That's what I think, and it's my opinion. They're going to say, Massachusetts, you did it, and if they want to move this to basically a constitutional issue of the 10th Amendment, which would allow states to implement it, I think that's what they're going to do.
Well, a number of states, as you know, are actually going through that
Yes.
that process. California is one.
Yes.
There are a number of bills still pending in the legislature dealing with capping out-of-pocket expenses, prohibiting insurers from denying coverage to those with pre-existing conditions.
Yes.
Those measures have gotten out of the Assembly, out of your House. They're pending in the Senate, but with no Republican support.
Right. So the bottom line is if California goes it alone like it does on so many other economic issues, you'll see a greater exodus of businesses out of California and the middle class leaving here in truckloads, because the cost of insurance it'll cost the state taxpayers over $220 billion a year. So do we get that money from education? Do we get that money from law enforcement? Or how are we going to keep businesses in California to produce wealth when we have erroneous legislation that cripples their ability to compete on a national scale?
I'm curious, where do you get that figure, the $220 billion?
Well, it's $1.7 trillion a year, and you divide the population of California at 12%, it comes out $220 billion.
The Congressional Budget Office, when they analyzed the Affordable Health Care Act, they said it would actually reduce the deficit by $132 billion between now and 2019, and that repeal of the ACA, the Affordable Care Act, would increase the deficit by $119 billion.
The total cost is $1.7 trillion. That's what the CBO office declared, and so that would mean that if California goes it alone, if you break down the cost and population, strictly population alone, that'd be $220 billion. The problem is if we are going it alone, and Nevada and Arizona and Texas refuses to implement it and goes another route, it puts their businesses on a difficult par to compete. And the ability to be able to implement Obamacare in California is going to be harder. I think you're going to see massive rationing. We have millions of people here that are coming from other states. We have literally 34% of the welfare costs of the nation, and we have 12% of the population. Based upon our economic recession in California, the bad policy, I think that we're looking at a terrible situation if that happens.
Well, public opinion generally is against the mandate.
Yes.
But public opinion also is for many of these provisions.
Yes.
Individual provisions. But you think the whole thing should be thrown out because of this competitive issue?
No, I don't think that. I think there's components that are important that can stay in place, but I think there's also other issues like telehealth medicine, high-tech industry being able to bring down the cost of healthcare, interstate competition for health companies, and in a major way, tort reform, which would make a big difference.
All right. We're out of time. Fascinating discussion. Dan
Yes.
Logue, thanks for coming by and talking about it. It's very interesting.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks to our viewers for watching Local Edition on Time Warner Cable. A reminder, you can see this and other interviews on My Government on Demand, also on YouTube. I'm Steve Swat. Have a great day.